Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro on a Friday rolling out for you. Yeah, baby, we got a lot to get to today, a lot to go over. We're going to have some fun today, as we always do, but some serious news to talk about, some fun stuff to talk about. That's what we do on the Vegas Take. And I'm in a good mood today because it's Friday. And one of my favorite bands is coming in studio. That's right. Our Lady Peace going to be here in hour number 3. That's going to be a lot of fun, so we're going to get to that.
Andrew hopped up our Kool-Aid.
That's right.
Blue raspberry, sourberry Kool-Aid.
Again, nobody knows what you're talking about. When you say Kool-Aid, do you think our listeners have any idea what you're talking about? No, I have to give a description when you say something like that. I brought in some Kool-Aid today. It's sour Kool-Aid, and it's disgusting. I apologize. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I apologize. So anyway, Our Lady Peace coming up in hour number 3. That's a band that sold millions of albums. That's going to be a lot of fun. Hour number 2, we got a lot to get to with Donald Trump, with Matt Lauer, the latest in this NBA China saga. Believe it or not, I am siding with Donald Trump when it comes to this issue. I'll explain what that means coming up in hour number 2. And the Texas El Paso shooter who killed 22 people. You're not going to believe this, folks. He pled not guilty yesterday in a courtroom. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But first, this is a story that has made national news throughout the world, and it has shocked the poker world. We've touched on it earlier. This Las Vegas Valley poker player that apparently cheated because of a stream, and it was a 30-minute delayed stream in this casino, but somehow he was able to get this live stream, and now he's being sued for $10 million. He won $250,000 in this cash game, so I figured what better person to have on the line with us than one of the most respected cash game poker players in the world. He's one of the highest cash game players in the world, and he's a friend of the show, and we appreciate him taking some time to join us. Matt Berkey joining us on the line. Matt, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Doing good, Matt. I appreciate you taking some time to join us. Now, you know, there are some poker players that I've spoken to off the air, one of them, Mike Postle, who is defending this guy, saying that he didn't cheat, that he believes that there was no cheating involved. But most of the poker world is saying there's no question that this guy has cheated. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think at first when the allegations kind of came to be, it's just natural instinct to say, this is America. People deserve due process, innocent until proven guilty. But the amazing internet era that we live in has thousands of sleuths who have come through hundreds of hours of video footage of this man playing, and he would be a statistical anomaly that is inexplicable in our terms. And he just wins at a rate that is as virtually impossible as you can imagine.
Okay, so for the listeners that are not very familiar with poker or what we're talking about, can you set the scene? He's playing in a cash game in a casino, right? They happen to be streaming it, and they're able to show the hole cards. So can you explain to the listeners how this guy cheated, how big of an advantage it was, and how you think he did it? Yeah,
sure. So the way that live streams work, generally they're extremely secure. They use RFID technology, which is radio frequency identification. And usually if you're working on a secure stream, everything's hardwired. There's really no way to hack into it without some sort of inside help. And it's operated on a 30-minute delay, sometimes a 60-minute delay. What we suspect has happened here is this stream itself was pretty low budget, so it was relatively unsecure from what we could tell as players once we started digging in, and it would be very easy, I guess. So it's kind of a crime of opportunity where, with one person working on the inside, the stream itself could have been conveyed to Mike in real time. So he could have gotten a virtual live feed, maybe on a 5 or 10 second delay, rather than the 30-minute delay that would allow him perfect information of what each of his opponents held. And though luck is a factor in poker, the the big reason why it's such a challenge is due to this imperfect information. You have to kind of guess what your opponents are holding.
Gotcha.
If you have that knowledge completely, you're unstoppable.
So let me just give people background on what we're talking about. By the way, we're speaking with Matt Berkey, professional poker player, one of the highest cash game players on the planet. And let me just give people just a little bit of background. What we're talking about is poker player Mike Postle. He was playing in a high-stakes cash poker game, and it's alleged that he cheated, that he was able to watch the live stream of the whole cards of his opponents. He won $250,000. Now he's being sued by those players at the table for $10 million. It's something we've never seen before.
And this happened at Stone's Gambling Hall in California. Matt, it's been stated that he basically guessed, or he basically played 99.97% of his hands correctly. Can you explain how impossible that is, considering that there's 8 other players at the table?
Yeah, I mean, first, I don't want to confuse things. That was just of the total hands that he played, so he wasn't playing 99% of hands.
Right.
But of the hands that he did play, he played them all almost flawlessly. And yeah, it's inexplicable. His defense was just that he understands this game deeper and better than anybody else on earth. But there's just no way that anyone could develop a predictive model that would ever be that accurate. Even the best AI in the world that has been developed to beat humans at No Limit Hold'em, their efficiency might be just north of 50% when it comes to making decisions.
So can you explain to people, because my understanding is that he kept looking down at his lap. He kept looking down at his cell phone. And while my understanding is he didn't have the actual live stream, he wasn't watching the live stream on his phone, but is it possible that he had to have had help, right? There had to be somebody on the inside that had to have helped him get this sort of technology, right? So could there be criminal charges filed?
Yeah, I think that we're kind of lacking a bit of a smoking gun, but an investigation, in my opinion, almost is certain to ensue. He was looking at his lap a lot. He kept his phone buried there the majority of the streams. So there is some, I guess, speculation that he was getting information through the phone. The irony is, and I want to make it very clear to the listeners, cell phones are very low tech when it comes to potential cheating devices. They're the least sophisticated version. They're obvious. They have limitations in what they can actually do. And there's just much better ways to cheat, I guess, if you want to get away with it. So I think a lot of people are gravitating towards we should ban cell phones in gaming situations, and this is a tragedy and everything else. It's like, okay, but what if he just had a micro earpiece in? What if he had a paging device strapped to his leg that was able to relay the information? The problem is that this particular stream wasn't secure, and somebody was able to gain inside information and relay it to him.
Gotcha.
What vehicle it uses to relay that information really isn't that important.
Gotcha. Okay, so now let's talk about the lawsuit. Now, there apparently he's sued for $10 million in this civil lawsuit. He only won $250,000. Now, I say only. That's an enormous amount of money, and if anybody stole $20 from me, I'm pissed off. But we're talking about $250,000 here. So he's suing for $10 million. Do you think he's going to get that? These players are going to get that much money? Number one, and number two, isn't the casino sort of responsible as well? I mean, I know the casino didn't cheat it, but if somebody, say a casino employee, helped him and they weren't able to police that, can't you find that the casino was liable as well?
Yeah, the casino is actually listed on the lawsuit as well.
Yeah, they're in the lawsuit.
As are some other. I think they left it open as 10 John Does and 10 Jane Does that they could potentially add names later as more information comes out.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a high level of liability for the casino. As I mentioned, if nothing else, they were negligent in the way that they ran the stream. And I don't know that they're going to, get the fullest amount that they're suing for, whatever the case may be. But I do know that Mac, the lawyer who is filing suit, wants to set a precedent that, this is a protected industry. It's something that the players and the community alike aren't going to stand for. And, just recouping the $250 or $300 or whatever it is that he stole is kind of a slap on the wrist. So seeking punitive damages and trying to really set some sort of precedent moving forward that these cases are not taken lightly, I think is a really big element to this.
Does this guy have that kind of money? Because I would imagine you've played against him before.
Right. And no. If he cheated on a live broadcast for the entire world to see.
Yeah.
And keep those records up. I mean, I would imagine that there's some level of desperation there.
Yeah.
But
I don't think he's got 30, 40 million.
Yeah.
Matt, did you play with anybody at that table, or have you played with anybody that was at that table with him?
So I played in the last live stream that they ran prior to the news breaking. I kind of in part think that I was invited as almost somebody who would take a more critical eye to the game. I didn't know going in, but it was maybe a few hours thereafter where I kind of caught wind of what was happening, and within a week, Veronica had broken the news. So I had Mike right to my immediate right. We were playing big. So the usual game that he played in was $2, $5. Sometimes it was $2, $5, $10. We were playing $10, $25, $50. So the average buy-in was probably about $10,000. He ended up having his best night ever. I think he won like $20,000 or $25,000 that night. And it was odd because I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know that he was a suspect in any way. But even without that knowledge, there were some things that I kind of picked up on in real time that felt like shaky to me.
So wait a second. I want you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want you to continue this story, but I was unaware of this. You're telling me that during the time he was cheating, you were playing against him?
Yeah.
In a different session.
Holy smokes. Okay, so I wasn't even aware of this. Okay. How much okay, first of all, continue your story. Go ahead, and then I have some more questions for you. Go ahead.
Sure. So the big thing that I noticed, and I brought it up after the game to Veronica and a couple other friends, and that's when I kind of caught wind that maybe it's not on the up and up, but he would take action very quickly pre-flop. He very rarely folded, and if he was calling a raise, he would do so very quickly. But when it came to closing the action, and what I mean by closing the action is he was the last one to act, and then we were going to see a flop, he was very, very slow. So he would take upwards of a minute, and I couldn't piece together why somebody who otherwise acted relatively quickly
suspicious
would be so slow in these situations.
Right.
And, he's staring at his lap the entire time.
Wow.
Now that I'm kind of putting the pieces together, I think that he was waiting for his delayed stream to catch up. So he's seeing something with latency that maybe is 10, 15 seconds behind.
So explain this to me. How much money do you think he literally stole from you personally?
Probably very little. He beat me in a couple of pots. I may be out $2,000 or so from playing against him.
So it could have been a lot worse. I would imagine there's a lot of other players at the table that lost a lot more money.
Not lawsuit worthy. No. In a situation like this, when I'm sure you've played some games where someone is just otherworldly hot. They buy in for $50,000 and they walk out with $1.5 million, $2 million. At what point does the venue say, "Whoa"? And at what point do they have to ask themselves, "Is this person cheating?"
Well, the venue never. Right, because poker, the beauty of poker is it's mano a mano, and the casino is really uninvolved. They just take their cut of basically renting you the space and the staff and the dealers. And don't get me wrong, they're meant to ensure that things are on the up and up, but they don't police it the same way they would a table game because they're not at risk in the sense that they're not the one putting up the money. But they'll listen to scrutiny. So I think that, if one person complains, it's really easy to just chalk it up to this guy's not winning and he's an upset customer. But if 5 or 6 people complain, I think those inquisitions need to be taken seriously. And from what I understand, many, many people went to the director at Stone, JFK, and were complaining that they thought Postle was cheating over the last year and a half. And he kind of dismissed it and said that they ran an internal investigation and found nothing.
So do you think, Matt, and this is kind of a loaded question, but do you think that this could change poker forever in the sense of live streams? There probably will be more security put in place, perhaps even background checks on the people that are behind the scenes. Do you think this could change poker forever?
Well, I think that what needs to be made clear is that though Stones is kind of a bad actor in this sense, the vast majority of streams are incredibly secure and safe. So when you're talking about the World Series of Poker, when you're talking about PokerGo, these streams are built out through a full production team. They follow Nevada Gaming which is incredibly stringent in what they allow. They have to have a fully secure control room with like an armed guard. Oftentimes, a member of Nevada Gaming will be present in order to ensure that everything's on the up and up. So I actually don't think much is going to change from a protocol standpoint on those who are already doing well. I think it will turn a more scrutinized or put more scrutiny on the low budget streams that, particularly in California, where they don't have this sort of regulation, are kind of just flying by the seat of their pants at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately this is just kind of an eye-opening moment for players to be a lot more aware, to protect themselves, to ask operators like, what protocols do you have in place? Am I safe playing on this stream?
Sure.
And not taking any nonsense as a rebuttal.
There's no question this is not a positive for poker. This is a negative for poker. What would you say to a few people that have been around the game of poker for a long time? For example, a friend of mine, Mike the Mouth Madisau. He's a character. He's been around for a long time. He is defending this guy. And explain this to me, Matt. You're an extremely smart guy, and I agree with you 100% with everything you've said. There's no doubt. This is 100%. This guy cheated. We all know it. You were at the table. We all saw it. What would you say to a guy like a Mike Madisau, who is a big name in poker still? What he says on Twitter matters. I say the same thing about the president. The things that the president says matters. I hate to make that analogy to Mike the Mouth Madisau.
That is an awful comparison.
But in the poker
You're
world,
better than that.
No, but in the poker world, people listen to what Mike Madisau has to say. So what would you say to somebody like him that defends a cheater like this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mike's walked it back a little bit. I think it's getting to a point where he's indefensible. I've been a part of this investigative process since day one, and the first 24 to 48 hours, there were a lot of people standing up for this guy, kind of basically just crying foul that you can't publicly shame somebody without proof. And I don't think they understood the due diligence that went in before these accusations were made. Now here we are 10, 12 days later, and it's crickets. It's really hard to find somebody who is standing behind this man and saying, there is still a shadow of a doubt. Because even though humans are pretty bad at understanding big numbers and the impact that they have, a lot of the footage is just very damning. He just does things that anyone who's ever played this game before can recognize.
Matt, do you think he deserves to go to jail?
Yes, 100%. I would love to see the book thrown at these guys. I think it's an embarrassment to the game, and like you said, it does bring it casts a shadow of doubt on those who are playing in these environments. What's
the difference between what he does and somebody walking into a bank and robbing a bank? I mean, I don't know. I think this is a serious crime, and I'm with you 100%. You're cheating, and you're taking money from other players. Matt, before we let you go, I want to give you an opportunity to plug your Solve for Why Academy. What Matt does is he actually, if you're looking to get into the game or looking to become a better poker player, Matt is a fantastic teacher and at a very affordable price. Matt, talk to us a little bit about Solve for Why.
Sure. Started the academy almost 4 years ago now. It's grown into an online training site as well. Effectively, we're just kind of at the ground floor creating strategies that help players think a little differently about the game, think in a more strategic way, create models where they're not just flying by the seat of their pants and they're not just guessing. So we take a lot of the guesswork out of playing poker.
Well, Matt, I always appreciate it when you come on our show. You're an extremely intelligent guy, certainly smarter than both of us combined, and I'm glad that you were able to. I'm glad that you were able to explain this for the listeners. You did a great job of doing that. I'm sorry that you had to be a part of this, but I'm with you, my man. I hope this guy gets the book thrown at him. I hope he's broke for the rest of his life. Anyone who would do something like that at the poker table, I don't feel sorry for them one bit.
It's definitely going to be tough for him to get a big game again. That's for sure.
I don't think he's going to be in a casino anytime soon. Yeah. Matt, thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Matt Berkey, really smart guy, and he did a really great job. I didn't know that he was playing against this cheater. I didn't know he was at the table.
I had no clue.
It's amazing. Can you imagine? I mean, Matt is lucky in this sense, and here's what I mean.
And he's he's one of the most perceptive guys.
Here's what I mean by lucky. How lucky is he that he didn't get into a certain type of hand where he could have lost boatloads of money because the other guy knew what his whole cards were.
Or that he didn't play a bigger game.
Right. I mean, this could have been even worse than it is.
And 10, 20, 10, 25, 50 for him is very, very small. He consistently plays 2,000, 4,000.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
He plays some huge games.
This is not the first time, I guarantee you, that this has happened before. It just so happens that this guy was dumb enough to get caught, and he's a criminal. Make no mistake about it. This is no different than walking into a casino and using some sort of device to steal money from the casino. Or, you're going into a slot machine and you're using a device to try to steal money from a slot machine. The only difference being he wasn't stealing against the casino necessarily. He was stealing against players. Make no mistake about it. If he was stealing against the casino, he'd probably already be in jail. But
if not worse.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to continue to monitor this story and see the way it goes, but it's not looking good for this guy, and I don't feel sorry for him one bit. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, some news about that Texas El Paso shooter at the Walmart that you are not going to believe, and it all happened in court yesterday. I'll explain when we come back. You're listening to the Vegas Take right here on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM, KDAWN.